Forget everything you have ever heard about the romance of ancient life and the wisdom of shamans. Leave aside the myths of harmony with nature, spiritual journeys, and great secrets revealed to the chosen few. In this story, you will see the real underside, the ruthless, filthy, meaningless, and hopeless everyday life of the one called a shaman. There is no magic here, no comfort, only cold, hunger, loneliness, and an endless parade of other people's suffering for which you have no answers. But before you get comfortable, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is for you. I'm really curious to see who has joined us. Now, make yourself comfortable. We're about to begin. You wake up. Of course, that is not entirely accurate. You never really slept in the first place. The word sleep conjures images of comfort, of rest, of soft things, and safe dreams. None of those words apply to your reality. Your reality is the same every morning, somewhere between drifting in and out of half consciousness and grimly holding on to the animal skin that is supposed to keep you warm. It does not. The air inside your lodge is not just cold, it is hungry, biting at any inch of exposed skin, eager to remind you of the outside world's complete indifference to your comfort or survival. You roll over, and something crunches underneath you. It is not unusual. On any given night, your bed, if you can call it that, collects the detritus of daily existence, bits of bone, pebbles, old leaves, flakes of dried skin, maybe a long forgotten chunk of root you intended to chew but never did. You make a half hearted attempt to brush the debris off your sleeping skin, but your fingers are stiff, more like twigs than human hands, and you give up before you have even really begun. Above your head, the roof is little more than a patchwork of badly tanned hides and bent willow branches. The last storm pulled several seams apart, so now the wind comes in at odd angles, swirling ashes from last night's fire across your face. You cough. There is always smoke. Even when the fire has gone out, there is always smoke. You have grown used to the taste of it, to the black grime that lines your nose, your teeth, your tongue. You are not sure what your skin actually smells like anymore, because all you ever smell is old smoke and sour sweat. You sit up, and your back protests. There is no word for comfort in your language, at least not one that actually means comfort, as you suspect people in other places might understand it. The best you can say is not in pain right now, and right now, as every morning, you are in pain. Your neck aches from lying twisted around a knot of fur. Your legs are cramped, and your right arm has gone numb from resting too long against the hard packed earth. It is barely dawn, but you hear sounds outside. The low, urgent coughing of the old man whose lungs have sounded like a dying fire for as long as you can remember, the muted weeping of a mother whose child is sick, again, always sick. There are other voices, too, already arguing, already blaming the cold, the wind, the damp, each other, and eventually you. You stand up, wobbling, and pull your fur wrap tighter around your shoulders. It is not much more than a collection of skins held together by sinew and a prayer. The edges are matted, greasy, stiff, with things you have long since stopped trying to identify. You are supposed to look impressive. You are, after all, the shaman. But you know how you appear: hunched, greasy, wild haired, more like a bear that has lost a fight than a revered figure of mystical wisdom. Your bare feet find the cold, hard dirt floor. The fire has gone out. Of course it has. You used the last of the good wood last night, trying to keep the sick child's fever from taking her away before dawn. The wood burned quickly, flashing hot and bright, and then left nothing but gray, powdery ash. You dig your fingers through the ashes, feeling for anything that might still be warm, but there is nothing. For a moment, you allow yourself the luxury of sitting. You listen. The wind outside rises and falls. Someone curses. Somewhere, a dog is barking. A child starts to scream. Your head throbs. You run your hand through your hair. It is thick with grease, dust, and something sticky you cannot name, and sigh. There are so many things to do today, and so few of them have anything to do with magic. You are not a wizard. You are not even particularly wise. You are at best a person who has survived long enough to know that survival is a series of grim compromises. You wonder what it would be like to wake up somewhere warm, with a full belly, without the weight of everyone else's sickness, pain, and disappointment already pressing down on your chest before you have even left your lodge. You cannot imagine it. You do not even try. You pull yourself up. Another day has begun. It will be like all the others. There is no ceremony to it, no comfort, no relief. You are not special. You are not blessed. You are just the shaman, and your life is as cold, as hungry, and as bleak as the dawn outside. You would expect that as the shaman, your morning meal might involve at least a modicum of dignity. Maybe, in another world, someone would bring you a bowl of something warm, a carefully prepared dish in appreciation for your endless, thankless service to the people. But here, in this hard place with its thin soil and its endless hungry mouths, you are greeted by the same breakfast you have known your entire life: the leftovers that no one else wanted, the remains of yesterday's failed feast, the roots you dug up yourself because everyone else was busy with more important things. The truth is, you do not really feel hungry. You rarely do anymore. Hunger is a constant presence, more a dull ache than a sharp pain. Your body has learned over the years to expect nothing from morning. Sometimes, if you are lucky, you find a scrap of dried meat tucked in the folds of your robe, forgotten in the rush of some midnight healing. But today, as most days, there is nothing so grand. You squat by the ash heap where your fire once lived. The bowl you use is an old, cracked thing, carved from a piece of soft wood so many years ago that it feels more like an extension of your hand than a tool. It is stained dark with the remnants of every meal you have eaten in this life, as though the ghosts of old feasts are trying desperately to cling to you. You paw through a small pile of withered roots and half frozen berries, their skins wrinkled and sad. You pick out a long, fibrous root that looks marginally less rotten than the rest. It resists your teeth, splintering instead of snapping, and as you chew, the bitter taste fills your mouth. You remember your mother telling you, when you were very small, that bitterness is a sign of medicine. You know now that she was only trying to make you swallow things that should never be swallowed. You chew and chew, your jaws moving slowly, each bite a small battle. Bits of root get stuck between your teeth. You try not to think about how long it has been since you last cleaned them. In the distance, you hear laughter, short, sharp, more like a bark than a human sound. Some of the young men are making fun of the way you eat, no doubt, or perhaps they are mocking the way you shuffle when you walk. Either way, you ignore them. You have learned that indignity is part of the costume you must wear. Someone has left a small pile of bones by your doorway. They are picked clean, gnawed to the point of translucency, but you take one anyway and suck at it, hoping for a hint of grease. Instead, you taste only dust and a memory of meat. You gnaw for a while, then toss the bone aside, where it joins the hundreds of others that litter the ground around your lodge. Your breakfast is a ritual of disappointment. Every bite is a reminder that you are not above the others, not even beside them, but below them in the great order of need. The warriors eat first, as is only right. They are the ones who bring food when there is food to bring. The children eat next, and then the women who tend the fires and the sick. By the time it is your turn, there is nothing left but what no one else will touch. You are the eater of remains, the scavenger of hope. You find a wrinkled berry at the bottom of the bowl. It is not ripe, not really, but it is sweet compared to the roots. You put it in your mouth, roll it on your tongue, and for a brief moment you remember what summer tasted like. Then you swallow, and it is gone. Sometimes, on lucky days, you might find a handful of old acorns. You know from bitter experience that you must soak them for days to make them edible. There is no time for that now. You crack one open with your teeth, spit out the shell, and grind the bitter meat between your molars. Your stomach complains, but you know it will pass. Everything passes. You look at the remains in your bowl and feel nothing. You are not angry. You are not even sad. You are just tired. Tired in a way that goes far beyond the body. You wonder if this is how the animals feel when the snow is deep and the world is empty, when in each day is nothing but the search for something to make tomorrow possible. As you finish your meal, such as it is, you hear footsteps outside. Someone is coming, moving quickly, urgency in every step. You sigh and set your bowl aside. The day has truly begun now, and your small moment of solitude is over. The people need you, or more accurately, they need someone to blame, someone to beg, someone to curse when their children cough blood in the morning cold. You stand, wipe your mouth on the back of your hand, and step outside, ready to face the endless demands of a world that will never love you, never even see you except as a last hope when all real hope is gone. Every dawn, just as the first sickly light bleeds across the treetops, you hear it, the sound of desperation, roughened by cold and hunger. They come to you not because you are beloved, or even because you are respected, but because you are necessary. In a world that offers only certainty in death and uncertainty in everything else, necessity is the only form of reverence left. The people need you, so they demand from you. They demand the impossible, the ridiculous, the tragic, and they do so with a sincerity sharpened by suffering and a bitterness honed by disappointment. It begins, as it always does, with a knock, or rather, a pounding. There are no gentle requests here. Whoever is waiting outside your tattered lodge wants you to know that their need is urgent, that it outstrips all others, that you must come immediately, before someone dies, or perhaps after someone already has. The pounding is followed by the plaintive wailing of a woman, the hollow bark of a man's voice, or the shrill cries of children who have learned young that noise is the language of attention. You step outside and are greeted by faces that do not look at you, but through you, as if searching behind your eyes for some secret reservoir of power. Today it is a mother, her eyes swollen from weeping, clutching a limp, fevered child to her chest. She begs you to do something, anything. She will promise you anything. Food she does not have, respect she cannot muster, favors she will not remember once the crisis passes. All she wants is a miracle. The child's breaths are shallow and fast, the skin stretched tight across his bones, his lips cracked and dry. You know, with the certainty of one who has seen too much, that there is nothing to be done. Still, you must do something. The crowd expects a performance, and you have become skilled at feigning wisdom. You kneel beside the child, placing your hand on his forehead, feeling the heat radiating through thin flesh. You mutter the ancient words, more out of habit than hope. The mother sobs and rocks, clinging to the last thread of belief. The others gather around, forming a silent, expectant circle. Some avert their eyes, as if by looking too closely they might become complicit in the child's fate. Others stare, hungry for a sign, a twitch, a gasp, a cough, anything to prove that your magic is real. You reach into your pouch, pulling out a handful of dried leaves and crushed roots. These are your tools, though you know they have little power except to distract, to fill the silence with ritual and the air with the sharp, bitter smell of hope. You chew one of the roots and spit the pulp into your palm, smearing it gently across the child's brow. The mother gasps, and for a moment you feel the weight of her belief pressing against your chest, as heavy and cold as any stone. You sing. Your voice is hoarse, thin, trembling from cold and fatigue. The words mean little to you now, just shapes that rise and fall in the air, but the people lean in, desperate for meaning. You make the motions, draw the signs, sprinkle ash and dust, and when it is done, you pull back, exhausted by the sheer act of pretending. You know the truth, the child will die. If not today, then soon. But you cannot say that. You must leave the door open, just a crack, for hope to slip through. The mother thanks you, her voice hollow and lost. She does not really believe, but she must try. She must avail the words, offer the gratitude, play her part in the ancient farce. The people drift away, some muttering that you have lost your power, others whispering that you never had it. A few glare at you with naked accusation. After all, it is your job to hold back death. If death wins, it must be because you failed. It is never enough. The child is only the beginning. All day, they come to you with their troubles. A man who cannot sleep because of nightmares. A young girl who limps from an old wound that will never heal. A woman whose milk has dried up and who fears her infant will starve. Each one wants a miracle. Each one wants a sign that their suffering is not random, that there is some order to the world, some justice that can be bought with the right words or the right offerings. You have nothing to give them but theater. You know, better than anyone, that the world is chaos. The spirits you speak to are silent. The omens you read are meaningless. The rituals you perform are old habits, echoes of prayers that never reached any ear but your own. Still, you continue. You must. To admit the truth would be to unravel the last thread holding your people together. By evening, you are exhausted, your voice is gone, your hands stained with the residue of herbs and dirt. You retreat to your lodge, where the air is thick with the smell of desperation and failure. You wonder, not for the first time, how long you can keep up the charade. How many more miracles will be demanded? How many more lives will slip through your fingers, leaving you to answer for their loss? You lie down, close your eyes, and listen to the sounds of the village settling into uneasy silence. Somewhere, a child coughs. Somewhere, a mother weeps. And you, the shaman, the last, worst hope of a broken people, are left to dream of a world where miracles are real and no one ever wakes you in the dawn, demanding the impossible. You keep your medicines in a sack made from the hide of an animal you no longer remember, a creature you were told was sacred, but whose bones are long lost to mud. The sack hangs by the doorway, always just out of reach of the rain, though never far enough to avoid the persistent damp. When you open it, you are met with the scent of decay, not sharp, but heavy and slow, like the breath of earth itself. Your collection is pitiful. Other shamans, at least in stories, possess wonders, sacred powders, powerful stones, feathers from birds that never die. You have dirt, moss, and rotting roots. You have what the forest gives you and nothing more. Sometimes, in the spring, you find new shoots of a plant that might ease pain if boiled long enough. In summer, you may gather leaves that sting the tongue and promise to drive away fever, if only for a night. But now it is neither spring nor summer, and your sack is heavy only with what survives the winter, handfuls of moldy bark, scraps of lichen, dried berries with skins as tough as leather. Your people come to you with broken bodies and ruined spirits, expecting magic. All you can offer is a slurry of ground roots and water, a paste of moss and spit, the ritual burning of dried twigs. You have learned to make these simple things look mysterious. You hold each root aloft, whispering the names your teacher gave you, as though the mere act of naming could summon power from the void. You know that for most ills, your medicine is a lie, a comfort, not a cure. But comfort is rare, and sometimes you think it is almost enough. You kneel beside the sick, dipping your fingers into your makeshift salves. A child with sores on his skin, a warrior whose leg festers from an old wound, a mother who coughs black and cannot eat. For each of them, you make the same motions. Dab the sores with moss steeped in cold water. Rub the festering flesh with a paste of crushed root and ashes. Press a foul smelling poultice to the chest of the dying woman. You chant, low and steady, letting your voice fill the gaps that medicine cannot reach. There are no clean bandages, no silver knives, no sweet smelling herbs. You make do with what you have. Strips of bark to tie wounds, chewed leaves to stop the bleeding, smoke from burning sage to mask the stench of rot. Sometimes the wounds close. Sometimes the fever breaks. More often, the sick get sicker. They look at you with pleading eyes, but you see accusation there too, as if you are withholding some secret cure, saving your real power for someone more worthy. You remember how, as a child, you believed in your own future magic. You thought that learning the names of things would give you command over them, that studying the patterns in the moss and the tracks of the animals would allow you to change the fate of the people. But now you know there is only so much that roots and moss can do. Most of the time, you are little more than a witness to suffering, a custodian of last hopes. Some days, you think the real magic is in the lying, the confidence with which you mix your potions, the solemnity with which you apply your poultices. These are the spells that keep despair at bay. You are not healing anyone, not really, but you are offering a story, a ritual, a distraction from pain. And for some, that is the only relief you can give. When your medicines fail, and they fail often, you gather your tools and retreat, head bowed, shoulders hunched. The family weeps, the patient gasps or shudders or grows still. No one says it aloud, but you hear the words anyway. The shaman did nothing. The shaman is powerless. The shaman is to blame. At night, alone in your lodge, you count your roots and mosses and dried barks as though the act of counting could transform them into something greater. You grind a bit of rotten bark between your teeth, trying to taste the bitterness your mother once claimed was healing. It is just bitterness. You spit it out and stare into the dark. You know there are other healers far away who might have more. Perhaps in the land beyond the great river, someone has real medicine, real knowledge, real power. But you are here with your sack of moss and your handful of dirt. You are the shaman. The people have only you, and you have only this. If you could remember a time When you were not tired, perhaps you would believe that such a thing was possible, but as it stands, exhaustion is the ground you walk on, the air you breathe, the water you drink. From the moment you rise, if such a thing as rising exists in this half lit world of staggering and stumbling, you are spent. Your bones grind against one another as you move, muscles cramp and twist, and your thoughts flicker like fire at the bottom of wet wood, uncertain, weak, likely to go out at any moment. Yet you have no choice but to move. From the first moment of dawn, they come. The people, the sick, the desperate, the angry. They call you healer, wise one, bridge to the spirits. They do not call you by your name anymore. That was lost long ago, replaced by the role. To them, you are not a person who wakes, aches, hungers, and suffers. You are a vessel, sometimes holy, sometimes cursed, always exhausted. You stagger through the morning on legs that no longer belong to you. A young hunter wants a blessing before he leaves, convinced that your words might make the deer easier to find or the wolves less hungry. He stands in front of you, smelling of last night's fire and fear, and waits for magic. You draw signs in the dirt, mumble words that were old before you were born, press a charm of bark and bone into his palm. He leaves, a little lighter, you a little heavier. The day has barely begun. A girl, barely more than a child, stands by your doorway, holding a rag doll with one arm, her other hand twisted behind her back in shame. She will not say what hurts. You kneel, as you always do, and examine the thin arms and swollen joints, the bruises hidden by winter clothes. You know the look in her eyes, the one that says she has already learned to be invisible. You give her a charm made of moss and old feathers and tell her it will protect her from pain. She nods, pretending to believe. You both know it is a lie. There are ceremonies to perform, always. The dances for good luck, for rain, for healing, for the dead. Each one requires a different mask, a different set of words, a different rhythm in your tired feet. You remember when these dances brought you joy, or at least a sense of belonging. Now, each step is a test of endurance. The others chant and move around you, faces blurred by smoke, eyes shining with hope or accusation. It is impossible to tell the difference anymore. You sway and spin, sweat mixing with dust, breath coming in short, ragged bursts. You worry that if you fall, no one will notice. The people expect you to be everywhere at once. While you prepare herbs for a dying man, a woman screams for you to come to her hut. Her son will not wake. You hurry across muddy ground, slip, catch yourself, feel something in your ankle twist. You limp the rest of the way. Inside the hut, the air is thick with the smell of death and wet furs. You know you are too late. Still, you go through the motions, touching the cold skin, muttering prayers, shaking rattles. The mother sobs and curses you in the same breath. You leave, a little more hollow than before. At midday, you collapse beside your own cold fire. Your stomach groans, but you have nothing to eat. Someone left you a scrap of old root, gnawed nearly to nothing, as payment for a failed cure. You chew it anyway. The taste is bitter, but bitterness is the flavor of your life. You wonder as you swallow whether the gods, if they exist, have ever tasted anything else. The afternoon brings more tasks. Someone has been bitten by a snake. You are called to suck the poison from the wound, though you know it is too late for such heroics. You pretend, as always, but the man's skin is already turning dark, his breath slowing. The others watch you, waiting for a miracle. You do not even bother to lie this time. You shake your head and move on. There is always something to be done. The ceremonial fire needs tending. The young must be taught the old stories. The sick need to be comforted, the dying to be mourned. Each task is a stone tied to your back, and the load only grows heavier. You have no time for rest, no space for silence. Your mind races with lists. Who needs help? Who needs a blessing? Who needs to be buried before the wolves find them? As dusk falls, you think for a moment that you might have a few minutes to yourself, but someone shouts your name, not your real name, but the title you carry like a chain. You drag yourself up and go because you must, because that is what is expected. When the darkness finally settles, you lie on your bed of skins and bones, muscles trembling, mind buzzing with the day's failures. You know that tomorrow will be the same, and the day after that, and the day after that, until you die. You close your eyes, hoping for sleep, but knowing it will not come. There is no rest for you. There is only exhaustion. Night falls, but sleep does not. You long for rest with the same desperate hunger you feel for food, but rest, like all things in your world, is rare and unreliable. The night is cold and filled with noises that keep you just on the edge of waking. The endless howling of the wind through the seams of your battered lodge, the scurrying of rodents in the corners, the occasional ominous cracking of distant branches. That could mean an animal, an enemy, or simply the forest itself, reminding you that you are never truly safe. Your body aches for stillness, for peace, but each time you close your eyes, your mind refuses to quiet. You replay the failures of the day, the child whose fever did not break, the old man whose leg you could not heal, the mother who looked at you with equal parts hope and accusation. Their faces haunt your dreams and your waking moments alike, always watching, always waiting for you to do what you cannot do. When, at last, exhaustion drags you into a shallow, uneasy slumber, it never lasts. The people do not care if the shaman is tired. They do not care that your eyelids feel heavy as stones or that your limbs tremble with fatigue. In the middle of the night, footsteps approach your lodge, hesitant at first, then urgent, then insistent. You hear your title whispered, then spoken aloud, then shouted as panic builds. Someone is always sick. Someone is always dying. Someone is always afraid. And you, the shaman, are always needed. You drag yourself from your bed, not even bothering to wrap yourself more tightly in your furs. You stumble out into the night, bare feet sinking into the icy mud. The cold stabs into you all the way to the bone, a reminder that you are alive and that being alive hurts. Sometimes you wish you could simply ignore the calls, pretend not to hear, but you cannot. You know what happens to those who turn away from the suffering of others. They are banished, shunned, left to die alone in the forest. You may be tired, but you are not ready to die. Inside a neighbor's lodge, you find a child shaking with fever. The mother looks at you with wild eyes, as if she expects you to pluck health out of the air. You kneel, press a cool, dirty cloth to the child's brow, and mutter the old prayers, hoping she cannot hear the hollow emptiness in your voice. You tell her the fever will pass, though you have no idea if it will. You leave a packet of dried leaves and instruct her to boil them in water, even though you know it is probably useless. The mother clings to your instructions like a lifeline. You want to tell her the truth, but the truth is no comfort. You return to your lodge just as the sky begins to lighten, the darkness giving way to another gray, joyless dawn. You have not slept, not really. Your eyes burn, your head throbs, and your muscles feel as though you have been beaten. You try to lie down again, but it is too late. The village is waking, and with it comes a new round of demands, new voices calling for the shaman. Some nights, sleep is interrupted not by the people, but by the dreams. You dream of the dead, faces you failed to save, eyes that look at you with accusation, hands that reach for you, cold and insistent, dragging you down into the black water of guilt. You wake gasping, covered in sweat, the smell of smoke and rot thicken your nose. You try to shake the dreams off, but they cling to you, sticky and heavy, coloring every thought and every action of the day. You envy the others sometimes. You see them curled together for warmth, snoring or murmuring in their sleep, their faces soft and untroubled. Even the dogs seem to sleep better than you, but you are always half awake, one ear tuned for trouble, one eye open for danger. You have become an animal yourself, a creature that never truly rests, never truly lets down its guard. It is said in the old stories that the spirits favor those who stay awake, that the world of dreams is dangerous for shamans who might wander too far and never return. Perhaps that is true, but you suspect the stories were invented to justify the truth that you do not sleep because you cannot, and you cannot because you are needed too much and feared too deeply to ever be allowed peace. Sometimes, in the thin hours before dawn, you fantasize about what it would be like to sleep deeply and without fear, to lie down and feel the weight lift from your shoulders, to drift away into oblivion and wake feeling refreshed. But you know that for you, sleep is just another battle, and it is one you will never win. So you rise again and again and again, stumbling through each day in a fog of exhaustion that no amount of prayer, medicine, or hope can dispel. You are the shaman. You do not sleep. You do not rest. You endure, because you must and because there is no other choice. You could argue that the worst part of being shaman is not the hunger, nor the cold, nor the relentless weight of expectation. It is the smell. The stench of your life hangs around you as persistent and clinging as a curse. It is the first thing you notice when you wake, the last thing before you try and fail to sleep, and the constant companion in every moment in between. No one tells you about the smell when you are chosen for this life. The old shaman never took you aside and whispered, "It will cling to your bones, to your soul. You will never be clean again." But you learn quickly. You have to. The stench is not one smell, but 1,000. The sharp tang of wood smoke, the greasy funk of old animal skins, the sweet rot of sweat, fermented by endless days and nights without bathing, the sour bite of fear and sickness. All of it weaves together into a single, inescapable cloak that you wear everywhere. Your skin is never clean. You scrub with handfuls of sand, with scraps of moss, with cold water from streams, but it is hopeless. The soot from 100 fires is pressed deep into every pore, darkening the cracks and calluses of your hands. Even your hair, once dark and maybe even shining, is now a greasy tangle, thick with ash and the residue of plants you've crushed, chewed, and smeared into your scalp during rituals. Lice find you an excellent host. Fleas, too. Some mornings, you wake to find your scalp itching so badly you want to rip it off, but you cannot. You scratch and scratch, then tie your hair back and carry on. Your clothes are worse. They started as gifts, perhaps from grateful people long ago. Now they are rags, sewn together and patched so many times that no original piece remains. You wrap yourself in furs that have long since lost their soft warmth. Instead, they hold the ghosts of every smoke-filled night, every wet, moldy day. When it rains, the stench intensifies, like a stew left too long on a dying fire. The smell of wet animal skin, old sweat, and rotting plants fills your nose, your mouth, your dreams. Even when you try to ignore it, it is there. The smell follows you everywhere. When you sit among the people during a council, you see the way they lean away, subtly but unmistakably. Children wrinkle their noses and giggle behind their hands. Warriors, proud and tall, hold their breath if they must come close. Mothers wipe their children's faces as if your presence alone is enough to spread a disease. Even the dogs know your scent. They sniff you with curiosity, then retreat, disappointed. Sometimes you wonder if you smell more of life or of death. After all, you spend as much time with the dying as with the living. The stink of sickness is familiar, the iron tang of blood, the earthy odor of infection, the sweet, nauseating perfume of a body turning in on itself. You kneel beside the sick, the dying, and the dead, and your hands carry their stories and their scents back with you. There are days when you cannot tell where your own flesh ends and the rot of the world begins. No one, not even the other outcasts, wants to share a fire with you. On cold nights, you sit a little apart, shivering not just from chill, but from the isolation that comes with your smell. The wind never carries it away. If anything, it seems to swirl it around, so that sometimes you catch a whiff of yourself and wonder if this is what the underworld smells like: stale, heavy, thick with everything that cannot be washed away. Bathing is a rare and dangerous luxury. The rivers are icy and fast, and more than one fool has vanished beneath the current, their bodies never found. When you do manage to wade in, gasping at the shock of cold, you scrub at your skin until it bleeds, but the stains remain. The village elders say that the shaman must carry the mark of the world, and perhaps this is what they mean. You are marked by odor, a living reminder of everything that is wrong and broken and old. Your lodge smells too. The smoke never fully leaves. The animal skins draped across the entrance are heavy with damp, and the dirt floor soaks up every drop of blood, sweat, and sickness that passes through your life. Even the sacred objects you keep, feathers, carved stones, dried plants, are infused with the reek of your existence. Sometimes you burn sage or sweetgrass, hoping to mask the odor with something gentler, but it never lasts. The stink wins every time. When you dream, if you dream, it is of fresh air, a place where the world is clean and your own body does not betray you with every breath. You know such a place does not exist, not for you. The stink is your inheritance, your badge, your curse. You wonder if, when you finally die, they will burn your body quickly, for fear the smell will linger and spoil the world for those who remain. You are the shaman. You are the stink. It is as much a part of you as your hands, your voice, your hollow, sleepless eyes. There is a special kind of hunger that does not gnaw but simply settles in, heavy and ever present, as familiar as your own shadow. It is not the dramatic, starving hunger of stories, not the wild eyed desperation of a person weeks without food. No, your hunger is the slow, grinding, everyday kind, as ordinary and permanent as the dirt beneath your feet or the smoke in your lungs. You cannot remember a time when you were not hungry. It is simply a state of being. You wake up hungry. You spend the day hungry. You go to sleep hungry. And even your dreams, on the rare nights you find them, taste of food you can never quite reach. There is no feast waiting for you at the end of a hard day. There is not even a promise of one. The world is not generous. It gives you roots sometimes, and nuts, and the occasional small bird, if your luck is extraordinary. More often, it gives you nothing at all. It is true that now and then there is meat, a deer brought down by hunters, or a stray dog killed and thrown to the fire. But meat does not make its way to you except by accident, or in the mean spirited gratitude of someone who believes the bones will be enough. The strong, the hunters, the warriors, the elders eat first, the children and mothers after them. What is left is yours, and most days what is left is nothing. So you become a master of finding the edible in the inedible. You learn which lichens can be scraped off the north side of the trees and chewed, though they taste of old socks and rot. You know which roots can be boiled, and for how many hours before they lose their poison and become merely bitter. You become expert at shaking the last shriveled berries from frozen bushes, digging for bulbs in half frozen mud, and cracking open acorns to reveal the hard, mouth puckering flesh inside. There is an art to hunger, and you have become its most faithful disciple. You find yourself resenting those with full bellies, but you do not dare to show it. Instead, you pretend that you have no need for food, that you are sustained by spirits and smoke. Some believe it, others do not care. They are too busy licking grease from their fingers, gnawing meat from bones, to think much about the shaman's stomach. Sometimes, a child will offer you a scrap of bread, a half eaten root, and for a moment you glimpse the possibility of kindness. But the child's mother will snatch it away, scolding, "He must learn to share, but we must eat to live." And you nod, pretending to agree, because you are supposed to be above such needs. Your body has learned to make do with less. You are thin, but not the dignified thin of a fasting holy man, more the stringy, knotted thinness of an old wolf who survives on bones and bark. Your stomach cramps, but only sometimes. Mostly it simply shrinks, growing quieter, learning not to expect anything. There are days in the deep winter when you feel almost light, as if the hunger has hollowed you out so thoroughly that you might float away, carried by the wind like a scrap of old hide. The world is full of reminders. The smell of roasting meat drifting on the wind from another lodge. The greasy hands of children who wipe them on your furs when they think no one is looking. The crunch of fresh nuts cracked between strong teeth. The sound of a bone being sucked clean. You hear it all, see it all, and know that none of it is meant for you. You are not part of the feast, only the afterthought. You are clever, though. You know that hunger can be a tool. When someone comes to you, desperate for help, you let your voice tremble a little, let your hand linger over your empty bowl. Sometimes, not often, they take the hint, a handful of dried berries, a wedge of cold, hard bread, a scrap of sinew with the memory of meat still clinging to it. You take what is offered with gratitude, even when the gratitude is as false as your smile. You have learned that hunger never really leaves. It is with you when you perform your rituals, when you dig roots from frozen ground, when you sit by the dying and whisper promises you cannot keep. It is the cold in your bones, the ache in your belly, the sharpness in your words when you are too tired to pretend. Some nights you find yourself dreaming of food you once tasted as a child. A rabbit, perfectly roasted, berries, sweet and bursting with juice. You wake with the taste of ashes in your mouth and a bitterness that is deeper than the hunger itself. And yet, you survive. You have no choice. You eat what you can, when you can. You chew bark until your jaw aches. You swallow roots so bitter your eyes water. You suck marrow from bones until there is nothing left. You convince yourself that you are above such things, that hunger is just another trial, another lesson. But you know the truth. You are always hungry, always. It is the one thing you can depend on. This is the life of the shaman, not visions or power, not wisdom or awe, just the endless ache of a stomach that is never full, the gnawing reminder that even here in the world of spirits and dreams, the body is king, and the king is always starving. If stories told the truth, the shaman would be a revered figure, wise, respected, perhaps even loved. But you know better. You are not a beloved elder. You are not the gentle old woman to whom children run for comfort. You are not the trusted confidant of warriors or the cherished adviser of the chief. You are something altogether different, something necessary perhaps, but never truly welcomed. When you walk through the camp, people step aside, not in deference, but in avoidance. Their eyes slide past you, as if seeing you too clearly might invite disaster. Mothers hush their children and pull them close when you pass, their faces stiff and polite. Children, bold in groups, whisper behind your back, inventing stories about what you eat, where you sleep, what you do when the fires burn low and only the spirits are awake. Sometimes they dare each other to touch the hem of your robe, then squeal and run, convinced they have flirted with death itself. You do not blame them, not really. The world is hard, and everyone needs someone to fear when the dark closes in and the howling starts outside the circle of light. You have simply learned to be that someone. It is a role you did not choose, but it fits as well as any of your old, patched furs. You are not one of them. You are a part. This is the first lesson and the last. It is always easier to be feared than to be pitied, easier still than to be ignored. So you cultivate your strangeness. You speak in riddles when asked simple questions. You walk alone even when you crave company. You mutter prayers that mean nothing just to watch the faces around you tighten with worry. When the dogs growl at your approach, you bare your teeth and growl back, a silent joke between you and the world. When things go wrong, and things always go wrong, the tribe looks for someone to blame. The crops fail, the fish disappear, a child falls ill. The warriors come back empty handed. A sudden storm destroys the food stores. Someone's baby is born with a twisted foot. The people do not curse the spirits, they curse you. It is easier to hate the shaman who is close at hand than the gods who are far away. It is easier to believe that one person's failure or malice can twist the world than to admit that suffering is blind and random. You are the sponge for their fear, their anger, their helplessness. Sometimes at night, you hear them talking in low voices. You catch words like curse and omen and bad luck. You know they talk about you, about your hands, your words, your failures. You know too that they need you. Even as they resent you, they cannot do without you. When the wind howls, they whisper your name for protection. When the hunters leave, they demand your blessing. When someone dies, they beg you to make sense of it all. Hatred and dependence walk hand in hand, and you are caught between them. There are rare moments when someone comes to you alone, eyes red rimmed and voice trembling. They beg for help, for a cure, for hope. They promise you anything: food, respect, a place at the fire. But these are bargains made in desperation, quickly forgotten when the crisis passes or the cure fails. You are not invited to the feasts. You are not asked to tell stories. You are not trusted with the secret laughter of friends or the gentle touch of family. You are a shadow on the edge of their lives, a necessary evil. Even the animals treat you as an outsider. The dogs avoid you. The horses roll their eyes and shift when you approach. The crows, who know everything, watch from the trees with something that looks like mockery. You cannot remember the last time you shared a quiet moment with another living being and felt welcome. This is the shape of your existence. On the outside, looking in, you see the warmth of other people's fires, hear the laughter and singing, smell the meat roasting on good nights. But you stand apart, always a little cold, a little hungry, a little haunted by the knowledge that you are needed, but not wanted. If the world were different, perhaps you could have been more. But the world is not different. The world is exactly as it is: harsh, pitiless, and quick to turn on anyone who dares to stand apart. You are the shaman. You are the necessary outcast, the person people turn to only when desperation drives them past fear. You wear their blame like a second skin, thick and bitter, and you tell yourself that it is enough. Sometimes you almost believe it. In the old stories, everyone belongs. The people are divided and woven together by kinship, by the soft and binding threads of clan and lineage. Each has a place: hunters and weavers, mothers and warriors, children and elders. Each clan traces its bloodlines, its glories, and its tragedies back to some animal spirit, some ancestor whose story gives shape and pride to the living. The clan gathers by the fire, shares its secrets, sings its songs, guards its own. Each member is held in the warm, inescapable net of us, of belonging. You know these stories well because you are always listening from the edge. But you do not belong to any clan. The shaman is clanless, even if once, as a child, you were someone's daughter or son, even if once there was a mother who whispered your name and a father who taught you how to tie sinew and skin. That was a lifetime ago, and lifetimes are short here. When you became shaman, you stepped outside the lines that bind everyone else. You left the comfort of belonging behind. No one tells you this at the beginning. They tell you that you will have power, wisdom, maybe even respect. They do not tell you about the cold loneliness of being clanless. You see the difference everywhere. When the clans gather, each under its own totem, you sit apart, close enough to hear, never close enough to join. You watch the way people laugh more easily among their own, the way troubles are shared and burdens divided. When a feast is held, every clan sits in its own circle. They pass food and stories and inside jokes. Your place, if you are given one, is at the ragged edge by the smoke, with the old men too deaf to hear or the orphans too shy to speak. You are not one of us. You are the other, always the other. It is a strange kind of freedom, perhaps. There are no clan duties to pull you from your hut in the middle of the night, no family rivalries to entangle you, no elders to scold you for the mistakes of your ancestors. But the price of this freedom is a silence so thick you sometimes feel as if you are choking on it. There are no arms to hold you when you grieve, no soft voices to comfort you in the dark, no one to sit with you when the nights are long and the wolves are close. The clanless are like the dead, always present, never truly here. You notice it most at the great rituals, the moments when the whole tribe comes together to mark the turn of the seasons, to mourn the dead, to beg the spirits for mercy. You are always at the center, leading the chants, scattering the ashes, drawing the sacred signs in the dirt. All eyes are on you, but none with warmth. They watch for mistakes, for omens of disaster, for evidence that your isolation has made you mad. When the ritual ends, the clan leaders gather to speak, their heads bent together. You are not invited. You wait outside, the smoke stinging your eyes, pretending not to listen. Children learn early that you are not safe. Their mothers tell them not to stare at you, not to touch your clothes, not to ask about your life before the shaman's hut. If you once had brothers or sisters, they belong to their clan now, and you are just a strange story. When a child asks, "Who is the shaman's family?" there is no answer. You have none. Even the dogs, who know the smells of every child and every woman, treat you as an outsider. There are moments when you forget, for a heartbeat, what you have lost. In the busy chaos of a healing or the mindless repetition of a ritual, you almost feel connected. Almost. But always afterward, there is the silence, the emptiness where laughter or an embrace might have been. You fill it with words, with prayers, with the dull, repetitive music of duty. Sometimes you imagine a world where the shaman has a clan, a family, a place to belong. But you know this is just a dream, and you have learned painfully and slowly to distrust dreams. On the worst days, when blame and suspicion grow thick as smoke, you feel the absence of belonging most keenly. No one stands up for you. No one speaks your name with pride. When there is trouble, a failed hunt, a spreading illness, a feud between clans, it is easy for everyone to point at the clanless one, the outsider, the shaman. You are the thread that can be snipped with no risk to the weaving. You are expendable. They will miss you only if something worse takes your place. You carry the weight of your clanlessness in your bones. It changes your posture, your walk, even your voice. You learn to be careful with every word, every glance. You learn to carry your loneliness like a badge, like a weapon, sharp and polished and always ready. You survive because that is what the clanless must do. At night, when the fires die down and the clans gather close for warmth, you lie awake in your cold lodge and count the things you do not have. Then you get up, add more wood to the dying fire, and remind yourself that you are the shaman. You are the one who stands outside, alone, and you must be strong enough to survive the loneliness that comes with the role. The spirits do not care if you are clanless, neither does the world, and so each day you wake, hungry and shivering, and do it all again, alone but unbroken, the one who does not belong, and the only one who can bear it. You live with death as intimately as you live with hunger and cold. It is not a visitor, it is not even a threat. Death is a permanent shadow at your side, as present as the ache in your bones, as certain as the sunrise that reveals new grief every morning. You do not remember when you first became aware of it. Perhaps it was the first time you saw a boy, limp and emptied of breath. Or perhaps it was the long, slow loss of your own childhood, stolen piece by fever and want. In any case, you learned quickly death is never far. For the shaman, death is an old friend and a familiar enemy. The village is never free from its presence. In the spring, children die of coughs that tighten like hands around their throats. In the summer, a hunter falls from a cliff, his body smashed and bloodied, brought back by silent, stone faced companions. In autumn, the old ones slip away, their bodies too worn and thin to carry them through another winter. In the heart of winter, death is everywhere, in the bellies of the hungry, in the lungs of the sick, in the frozen hands of the unwary who wander too far from the fire. The ground is so often open for graves that it seems a part of everyday life. Your role is to bear witness. You kneel beside the dying, your knees pressed into frozen earth or into mats woven from brittle grass. You touch their foreheads, murmur words that mean comfort more than cure. Sometimes, if you are honest, you do not even know what you are saying, just syllables you inherited, passed down by older, equally helpless shamans, words designed to fill the terrible silence that surrounds a failing heart. You see the fear in their eyes, the way their fingers clench yours, desperate for an anchor in the black sea that is rising to claim them. You tell them stories about the journey to the other side, about ancestors waiting on distant shores, about a world where pain ends and warmth returns. You do not believe these stories, not really, but you tell them anyway. You hope that the dead, at least, can forgive the living their small lies. Sometimes the deaths are loud, a man gored by a boar, a child bitten by a snake, a woman bleeding out as she brings life into the world. The screams echo, and you know those echoes will come back in your dreams. More often, death comes quietly, like fog sliding in on padded feet. The old ones close their eyes and drift away, their last breath escaping in a sigh that seems to empty the air itself. You sit with them, alone, because no one else can bear to do it. You light a fire, or pretend to, and hope that the smoke will lead their spirits home. The living stay outside, afraid of the presence of death, afraid that it might linger and find them next. No one thanks you for these vigils. The families come to you afterwards, red eyed and trembling, and ask if you could have done more. Some do not ask, they simply glare, a silent accusation. You know what they are thinking. If you were truly powerful, truly wise, the dead would have lived. But you know the truth. All your rituals, all your chants, all your bitter teas and careful poultices, they are only gestures against the great flood. Death takes whom it wants, when it wants, and all you can do is watch. There are rituals for the dead, and you know them all by heart. You tie feathers to the fingers of the lost, smear their faces with ochre, sing songs to guide them on their journey. You watch as the bodies are wrapped and carried to the edge of the forest or the mouth of the river, given back to earth or water or fire, depending on the custom of the clan. Each rite is different, but the end is always the same. The living walk away, heads bowed, leaving you alone with the remains, picking up the last scraps of bone or hair or memory. Death does not frighten you anymore. You have seen it too often, touched it too many times. Sometimes you think you can smell it before it arrives. A sweetness in the air, a heaviness in the chest, a stillness that falls over the lodge like a blanket. When you see it in the eyes of the living, you know it is only a matter of time. You have dreams filled with the dead. They call to you, sometimes kindly, sometimes angry, sometimes just lost and cold. You wake with their names on your lips and the taste of earth in your mouth. You wonder if one day you will join them, or if your own death will be different, lonelier, quieter, more final. You suspect it will be all of these things. Every day you are reminded that you are not a gatekeeper, not a master of life and death, just a witness to suffering, a custodian of grief, a body to keep vigil when everyone else is too afraid to stay. The people need you for this, if for nothing else. Someone must look death in the face and not turn away. Someone must carry the memories of those who are gone, even when those memories become heavy as stones. This is your constant companion. This is your burden and your truth. Death walks with you, sits with you, sleeps beside you. It is the only presence that never leaves, never judges, never blames. You endure it as you endure everything else, because that is all that you can do. You learned very early and very harshly that your powers are little more than smoke and shadows. The people call you shaman and act as if the title alone gives you the ability to bend the world, to push away sickness, to draw rain from empty skies. They watch your every move, eyes wide and hungry for hope, desperate for signs, for omens, for miracles. You know the truth. There is no magic, not the kind they want. There are only rituals, old habits, and the performance of certainty in a world that is always uncertain. It starts with the small things. You draw patterns in the dirt, mutter words that have been passed down from mouth to ear for generations, and watch as your audience nods, comforted by the mere shape of ritual. You sprinkle ashes, burn leaves, wave your hands over the sick and wounded. If someone recovers, it is luck or the work of their own stubborn bodies. But you know, and the people know, that you will take credit for it. If they die, there will be whispers about fate, or curses, or your failure, but no one will ever admit what you already know. You are as helpless as they are. Your teachers told you that ritual is more important than result. The world wants to believe that suffering can be controlled if the right words are spoken, the right gestures made, the right offerings burned. So you become a master of the performance. You make your voice low and grave, your movements precise and slow. You keep your face blank, unreadable, the better to let others project their hopes and fears onto your silence. Sometimes you feel like a living mask, a hollow figure that exists only to hold everyone else's needs. There are tricks, of course. When someone comes to you with a sickness that you know will kill them, you make a show of your remedies. You tell them to eat certain roots, to drink water from a sacred spring, to sleep with feathers beneath their head. You know, deep down, that it will not change anything, but the act of doing something soothes them. Sometimes you light a small fire and toss strange smelling herbs onto it. The smoke fills the air, thick and cloying, making everyone cough and squint. You stand over them, chanting, letting the smoke blur your outline, hoping that for just a moment they will see you as something more than you are. There are days when you almost believe it yourself. When someone survives, when a wound closes or a fever breaks, the people come to you with gifts, a piece of dried meat, a soft hide, a few precious berries. They thank you, bless you, tell their children that you are wise and powerful. You accept their gratitude, feeling like a fraud. You did nothing but watch and wait, just as helpless as they were. The lie is almost comforting. If you are careful, if you never admit weakness, perhaps you can keep the illusion alive. But most of the time, you feel the weight of the deception. You know the limits of moss and bark, of ashes and songs. You know that the world is indifferent, that the spirits are silent, that the future cannot be read in bones or smoke. You know that when disaster comes, and it always comes, you will be expected to save the tribe with nothing but empty hands. It is a cruel joke, and the laughter is always bitter. You have become an actor, a juggler, a keeper of empty promises. You have learned how to listen carefully, to give answers that say nothing but sound profound. When someone asks for a prophecy, you speak in riddles, never committing yourself to anything specific. When they want you to find the cause of a misfortune, you list possible reasons: angered ancestors, broken taboos, wandering spirits, anything but the truth, which is that misfortune just happens, and there is no reason at all. The worst are the children. Their eyes are clear, their faith unbroken by experience. They believe that you can call down rain, cure wounds, find lost things. They ask you for miracles in soft, trusting voices, and it breaks your heart every time you fail them, which is every time. Still, you pretend, you tell stories, perform little tricks, try to make them smile. You hope, for their sake, that they will learn the truth slowly, gently, that disappointment will come in small, survivable doses. And then there are the elders. They have seen enough of the world to know that your powers are not what the stories claim. They watch you with wary eyes, suspicious of every gesture, every word. You suspect that some of them, in their secret hearts, pity you. They know the burden of being needed, of having nothing to give but hope and ritual. At night, you sit alone, the mask finally slipping away. You let yourself be tired, let yourself be small, let yourself remember that you are only human. You stare at your hands, rough and scarred, and wonder how much longer you can keep up the charade, how much longer you can pretend to hold back the tide with nothing but words and ashes. But you have no choice. The people need you to be the shaman, even if you are only pretending. The illusion is all anyone has left. Sometimes you think the illusion is better than nothing. Sometimes you even believe it yourself. You have learned to walk through your days as if you were moving across thin ice, listening for the smallest cracks, feeling the world shift under your weight. Every word you say, every gesture you make, every glance that lingers a moment too long, all of it is watched, measured, and judged. Your life is a performance, and the stakes are nothing less than survival. Because here, being the shaman is not a role of power or respect. It is a role of constant risk, where any mistake, no matter how small, can cost you everything. The people are afraid of you, yes, but their fear is not the kind that leads to awe or obedience. It is the kind that curdles quickly into suspicion, resentment, and anger. You see it in their eyes when you pass, hear it in their whispers at the edges of the firelight. They depend on you, but they do not trust you. You are both scapegoat and shield, the one to blame when things go wrong, and the one to turn to when hope is lost. The line between those two is as thin as a strand of hair. You remember the first time you truly felt the danger. A young warrior, proud and reckless, asked you to bless his hunt. You spoke the words, offered the charms, performed the ritual as you always did. But the hunt went badly. The animals vanished into the trees. The warriors returned empty handed, hungry, and angry. That night, as the fires died down, the men gathered in a tight circle, their voices low and sharp. Someone mentioned your name. Someone else spat. By morning, there were stones thrown at your lodge and a warning carved into the earth outside your door. Be careful. You were. You have been ever since. Now you measure every word. When someone asks for a cure, you promise nothing. The spirits may grant you health, you say. If you follow the old ways, perhaps fortune will return. If a child recovers, the parents are grateful for a while. If the child dies, as children so often do, the grief turns sour and their eyes find you in the darkness. There are always rumors, always accusations. You hear them say, the shaman failed us, or worse, the shaman cursed us. You know what that means. You have seen what happens to those accused of bringing misfortune, exile if you are lucky, death if you are not. You have learned to watch for signs, not the omens in the bones or the patterns in the ashes, but the signs in people, the tightness of a mouth, the way hands grip knives, the sudden silence when you enter a gathering. You know that here, a wrong word at the wrong time can be the end. If the chief's son falls sick after you have blessed him, if a storm destroys the harvest after you predicted good weather, if a rival shaman accuses you of angering the spirits, these are the moments when your life hangs by a thread. There is no room for error. You must always appear calm, certain, above ordinary fear. Even when you are trembling inside, you must not let it show. You have learned the art of saying much and promising nothing, of performing rituals that impress and confuse, of giving advice that cannot be proven wrong. You are always on guard, always rehearsing, always afraid. It does not matter if you mean well. It does not matter if you try your best. The world is unforgiving, and so are its people. The harder the times, the more desperate the blame. When winter is long and food is scarce, when the wolves grow bold and the fires burn low, the tribe looks for answers. Answers become accusations. Accusations become violence. You know the history. There are stories of shamans dragged from their lodges and beaten, of others driven into the forest, left to starve and freeze. No one speaks of these stories openly, but everyone remembers. You sometimes wonder if it would be better to leave, to run before the knives come out and the stones start flying. But you know there is nowhere to go. The next tribe would treat you no better. The forest is wide and cold, and you are not young. So you stay, you watch, you weigh every word and every step. You hope that today will not be the day your luck runs out. And yet, every mistake, every failure, every unexplained illness or sudden death brings the danger closer. You can feel it like a breath on your neck. You wonder if the people know how afraid you are, if they can smell the fear on you the way you can smell it on them. Maybe that is why they hate you, or maybe it is simply easier to hate than to accept how little anyone controls. At night, you lie awake, listening for footsteps outside your lodge. You think about all the small mistakes you made that day, replaying each one, wondering which will be the one that finally costs you your life. You are not a villain, not a hero, not even a fraud. You are just a person trying to survive in a world that wants miracles and settles for blood. You are the shaman. You live on the knife edge of the tribe's fear. One slip, one wrong word, one unlucky day, and you are lost. You once believed the stories, or wanted to believe, about the shaman's robes, the dazzling feathers, the intricate beads, the furs so soft and white they seemed woven from moonlight. Even as a child, watching from the shadows, you imagined that one day you would inherit some beautiful garment, something to mark you as different in a good way. But the reality is as bitter as the wind that blows through the cracks in your lodge. Your clothes are a collection of shame and necessity, always damp, always rotting, always crawling with things that bite. It begins with the weather. Nothing ever dries here. The rains come often, and without mercy, sometimes cold and cutting, sometimes soft and endless as sorrow. Even on the rare days when the sun emerges, its weak warmth does not linger. Your furs, patched and stitched and restitched from countless old hides, are never truly dry. They hold the wetness, locking it deep within the seams, turning heavy and sour against your skin. You wring them out sometimes, twisting until your hands ache, but it does not matter. The damp always returns. The animal skins you wear and wear and wear once had life, warmth, maybe even a scent of wildness. Now they are little more than rags, the fur worn thin and matted, the leather cracked and splitting, the edges chewed by mice and insects that find more comfort in your clothing than you ever could. The dampness breeds mold, a green black fuzz that creeps and blooms in hidden corners. Sometimes you catch a whiff of it, sharp and musty, like the breath of a closed grave. You scratch, and the mold spores drift into the air, unseen, waiting to settle again. Your attempts to clean the clothes are almost laughable. You beat them with sticks, scrub them with sand, wash them in the freezing river. For a moment, you imagine they are cleaner, but as soon as you put them back on, the cycle starts again. The stink, the wetness, the slow, inevitable return of rot. In the winter, when you hang them by the fire, steam rises in greasy clouds. In the summer, the sweat soaks them through before you even step outside. No season brings relief. The clothes become a home for more than just mold. Lice and fleas burrow in, thriving in the warmth and filth. You feel them crawling, biting, hiding in the seams. Some nights, the itching keeps you awake more than hunger or fear. You try to comb them out with fingers and sticks, but there are always more. Sometimes you imagine your clothes as a living creature, an ecosystem of misery and discomfort, feeding on your own body's warmth. People see your rags and whisper. The young women laugh, pretending you cannot hear. The children dare each other to touch the hem of your coat, then shriek as if they have brushed a ghost. You tell yourself you do not care, that the shaman must be apart, must not indulge in vanity or comfort. But you remember the old stories, and you feel the lie of them pressing down on your shoulders, heavy as wet fur. On ceremonial days, you do your best to look the part. You tie bits of bone and feather into the seams, rub your cloak with crushed herbs to hide the stink. For a moment, in the flicker of ritual fire, you almost look like something other than what you are, a shivering, ragged figure, covered in scraps, lost in a world that is always a little too wet, a little too cold, a little too cruel. Even your shoes, if you can call them that, are little more than bags tied around your feet, the leather long ago worn thin and cracked. The wet soaks through, turning your toes white and wrinkled, gnawing small sores into your flesh. When you walk, you feel the mud seeping in, the chill rising through your bones. Every step is a reminder of how thin the barrier is between your skin and the world's endless hunger. You dream sometimes of warmth, of dry, soft furs, of a fire that never dies, of clothing that does not reek or crawl or sag. But when you wake, the reality is always the same: the damp, the rot, the endless, gnawing discomfort. You tell yourself it does not matter, that what is inside is what counts, that the shaman's power is not in clothing, but in wisdom and endurance. But it is a hard lesson, and some days you feel you will never learn it. You have become expert at patching and mending, at turning rags into rags again, at making do with whatever scraps the others discard. There is no dignity in it, but there is survival. You are the shaman. You wear your misery as armor, layered thick and heavy, always damp, always rotting, always there. And so you pull on your tattered coat, tie the scraps of hide around your feet, and step into another day, the world pressing close, wet and cold, never letting you forget exactly who and what you are. Friendship for others is as natural as breath. Even in this harsh world, there are quiet conversations at night, laughter around the fire, the shared comfort of arms thrown across shoulders, and whispered secrets beneath the animal skins. You have watched these bonds form and thicken, as vital and unseen as the roots beneath the earth, holding the tribe together. But you have no friends, not a single soul you can call your own. Perhaps once, as a child, you played with the others. You ran through the grass, invented games, bickered, shared dreams. Those memories are distant now, hazy and faded like old paint on a rock. The day you became the shaman, all of that ended. It was not an abrupt severing. No, it was a slow, steady falling away as the others drifted from you. First, a little distance at the fire, then fewer words, averted eyes, the feeling of being watched rather than seen. Now you are entirely alone. No one sits beside you unless they need something. When you come to a group, the talk slows, then stops, and people find reasons to get up and leave. You are not invited to share food, except in the most formal, grudging way. You are not asked to join in the stories or the little games that pass the time. Even the old women who gossip about everyone do not include you in their soft, conspiratorial laughter. Your presence is a shadow that chills, a silence that falls over warmth. You try not to mind. You tell yourself that solitude is the shaman's lot, that you are meant to listen, to observe, to be a part. But even the most resolute heart aches for company. In the long, empty nights, you catch yourself inventing conversations with spirits, with animals, with the echo of your own voice bouncing off the hide walls of your lodge. You find yourself murmuring comments and small jokes to yourself, hungry for the simple pleasure of being understood. When others approach, it is never as equals. They come with needs, a sickness to heal, a dream to interpret, a curse to lift, a child to bless. Their faces are closed, wary, as if friendship itself would be a dangerous thing. You know, deep down, that some of them pity you, but it is a cold, useless pity. the sort one reserves for a wounded animal. Some despise you outright. Others, perhaps, would like to be kinder, but cannot risk being seen with you. Even those few who seem to linger a little longer, whose eyes sometimes soften, pull away when you get too close. There is always a reason, always an excuse. I must help my mother. The fire needs more wood. I am needed elsewhere. It is never you who is needed. You are needed only in the abstract, the role you fill, not the person you are. Children, with their quicksilver hearts, sometimes forget to be afraid. They come with questions, with laughter, with a hope for magic tricks or stories. For a few moments, you taste what friendship once was, a shared wonder, a secret world. But then a mother calls, or a father frowns, and the moment passes. The child looks at you, uncertain, and runs. You are left with the silence and the memory. You watch the bonds others form with envy you dare not name. You see how the young men clasp forearms and wrestle in mock battle, how the women braid each other's hair and sing together as they work, how even the outcasts have one another for company. There is no one for you. You are always on the edge, never in the circle. When you are sick or tired or afraid, there is no one to whom you can turn, no one who will sit with you just to ease the darkness. Sometimes, in dreams, you invent a friend, someone who knows your true name, who remembers the child you once were, who sits beside you in the cold and says nothing at all. You wake from these dreams more lonely than before. If you died tomorrow, there would be no one to mourn you. Not really. There would be a ritual, of course, and a few words said. Someone might remember a time you healed their wound or soothed their fear, but no one would remember the shape of your laughter or the sound of your stories. You would vanish from the world with hardly a ripple. You are the shaman. You have no friends. The people turn to you in need and turn away when their need is met. You carry your loneliness as you carry everything else, quietly, with resignation, with a kind of dull pride. It is your burden and your armor, the price you pay for a life lived on the edge of the firelight, looking in. You are the shaman, and so you are expected to know things, to fix things, to hold the tribe together when it seems determined to fall apart. But perhaps your most exhausting role, the one no one names, the one that gnaws at you quietly, day after day, is that of the tribe's listening post, its confessor, its living garbage dump for every fear, grievance, and sorrow that the others cannot bear alone. It is a thankless task. People come to you at all hours, rarely with gifts or gratitude, but always with burdens, always with secrets too heavy to carry. Their faces hover in the doorway of your lodge, tense and uncertain. They kneel or crouch or simply stand and begin talking, their voices flat or frantic, the words tumbling out in a torrent. They bring you every horror the world has to offer: a child lost to fever, a brother dead in the hunt, a lover's betrayal, a neighbor's theft. They confess their failings and their cruelties, their private shames and public humiliations. They weep, they rage, They beg for forgiveness or permission or just a word to ease the endless ache in their chests. They hand you their pain, expecting you to know what to do with it, to make it lighter or at least less sharp. You listen. That is your power, your curse. You listen as the warrior confesses that he is afraid, that he dreams of being eaten by wolves and wakes sobbing into his hands. You listen as the woman tells you of her empty womb, how she cannot bear another season of hope and disappointment. You listen to old men who regret their choices, to young men who are ashamed of their fears, to mothers who are drowning in their own exhaustion and resentment. The people pour their brokenness into you because you have nowhere else to pour it yourself. You are not allowed to break, to weep, to demand comfort in return. No one asks you about your dreams, your griefs, your failures. If you ever tried to share, the silence would be deafening, the discomfort palpable. You are a vessel, a dumping ground, a listening stone. You take it all in and nod and murmur the right words. The spirits will bring you peace, or all wounds heal in time, or you are not alone. You know these are little more than bandages over wounds that will never truly close. And it does not end there. After the confessions, after the storms of grief or guilt or fear, the people look to you for answers. You are expected to fix what is broken, or at least to explain why it broke. Sometimes you invent a story. It is the fault of angry spirits, you say. Or you have offended the ancestors, but there is still hope if you do this or that. Other times, you simply hold their hand or place a palm on their forehead, wishing you had something real to offer. The truth is, you cannot help most of them. Their pain is too old, their losses too deep, the world itself too cruel for easy remedies. But still they come, day after day, leaving pieces of themselves behind. And you sweep up after them, gathering all the fragments, tucking them away inside yourself until you are bursting with the unspoken misery of everyone else. You know that in another time, in another place, your role would have a name. You would be called a therapist, a counselor, a confidant. But here, there is no what for what you do. No one thanks you, and no one thinks about the cost. Your own sadness, your own confusion, your own sense of being lost. These must be hidden, buried under layers of ritual and stoic silence. When the day is done, when the last confessor has left, you sit in the dim silence of your lodge and try to empty yourself out. You speak the names of the suffering into the fire, hoping that the flames will carry them away. You take deep, shuddering breaths and try to remember your own troubles. But there is never time, never space, never anyone to hear you. The burdens you carry for others never truly leave. They pile up, rot, ferment, until sometimes you feel you will choke on the weight of everyone else's despair. You are the shaman. You are the one who listens, who absorbs, who cleans up after the emotional messes of the tribe. You are their garbage dump and their confessor. It is a role that will never bring you joy and never let you rest. If there is one truth that haunts you more than any spirit, it is this: you do not understand illness. No one does. There are names for some afflictions: the cough that rattles the chest, the swelling that eats the joints, the fever that burns until there is nothing left but bones and shadows. But names are not answers, and in every sickness, every wound, every sudden shudder or slow decline is, at heart, a mystery. The body fails, and no one knows why. You pretend otherwise. It is your duty, your mask, your role. You crouch by the sick, touch their foreheads, squint at the color of their tongues, sniff their breath, and pretend that the patterns you see are familiar, that you can trace the path of sickness from one organ to another. You ask about dreams and omens, about bad luck and broken taboos, about the position of the stars. Your questions are as much ritual as your medicines, a way of making order out of chaos, of convincing the frightened and the dying that someone, at least, knows what is happening. But inside, you are as frightened and confused as they are. You have watched healthy children collapse overnight, their eyes wide with terror, their skin going cold and blue. You have seen old women linger for years, coughing and cursing, then suddenly rise one morning and dance as if the illness had been nothing but a passing shadow. You have poured every bitter infusion, burned every sacred herb, sung every song, and nothing works, or sometimes something does, but you do not know why. It is a special torment to be held responsible for mysteries you cannot solve. When someone recovers, it is your doing. When someone dies, it is your failure. If two people fall ill at the same time and only one survives, they say, the shaman liked him better, or the shaman's magic failed. The reality that you have no more power over illness than a stone has over the river is never spoken. You bury it deep. You try everything, of course. You grind roots into paste, brew teas that taste of dirt and regret, smear moss on wounds, chant until your voice cracks. You boil river stones and place them under the patient's bed. You burn sage, sweetgrass, anything that promises the faintest whiff of hope. Sometimes you fast, believing that your hunger might convince the spirits to be merciful. Sometimes you whisper curses against the illness, as if the world will listen. Nothing makes sense, nothing is certain. There is no pattern, no law, no logic. Some fevers break, some do not. Some wounds heal clean, others fester and stink, spreading pain through the body like spilled ink. You have seen men survive wounds that should have killed them, and children die from scratches. Every sickness is a new riddle, every death a reminder that the answers are always just out of reach. The worst are the illnesses that sweep through the village, devouring families in days. You see the fear in everyone's eyes, the way they pull away from one another, whispering about curses, about angry spirits, about someone who must have offended the ancestors. Sometimes they whisper about you. You light fires, recite prayers, draw circles in the dirt, anything to keep the terror at bay. But the sickness comes anyway, and all you can do is watch, helpless. You have tried to keep records, to find some meaning in the chaos. You scratch marks on bones, count the days between outbreaks, track the waxing and waning of the moon. But the marks tell you nothing, and the dead keep coming. You wonder if, in another life, you would have been a healer with real knowledge, real tools, real answers. Here, you are just a guesser, a performer, a custodian of other people's pain. You carry your failures with you. You remember every face, every promise made and broken, every family that looked to you for a miracle and received only a story, a ritual, a handful of bitter tea. At night, you hear the coughing, the weeping, the silence that follows when a house grows quiet. You wonder what you missed, what you could have done, whether anyone will ever forgive you. You are the shaman. You are supposed to know, but you know nothing. Every illness is a new enemy, wearing 1,000 masks. You fight with sticks and stones and hope, and you lose more than you win. Still, you pretend, because pretending is all you have left. If hope was ever a color in your world, it has long since faded to gray. As shaman, you are the one everyone turns to when the present becomes unbearable. And so, inevitably, they ask you about the future. What will the next hunt bring? When will the rains return? Will the children grow strong, or will the sickness return with the thaw? These are the questions you hear again and again, always with the same hungry eyes, always with the same desperate undertone. They want to be told that things will get better, but you cannot lie well enough for even yourself to believe it. You are supposed to read the signs, the shape of bones in the fire, the patterns left by smoke, the flight of birds at dawn. The people believe that somewhere in the tangled threads of the world there is a pattern, a hint, an omen. Sometimes you go through the motions. You cast the bones, you squint at clouds, you pretend to ponder the lines in the mud after rain. But inside, all you see is more mud, more smoke, more of the same hard world pressing in from every side. You know the truth. The future is no kinder than the past, no more forgiving than the present. It brings more cold, more hunger, more sickness, more funerals. Each season you endure is just a slightly different flavor of hardship. If the winter is mild, the spring will bring floods or rot. If the hunt is good, there will be more mouths to feed, more chance for accidents, more jealousies and fights. A good year is never truly good. It is only the absence of catastrophe for a few precious weeks. When you try to comfort someone, it feels like swallowing stones. You tell them, the spirits watch over us, or the land will provide, or the ancestors are near. You see in their faces that they want to believe, that they are begging you for hope. You give them what you can, but the words turn sour in your mouth. You know too much about how quickly things can go wrong, how easily a single mistake or storm or fever can unravel everything. You are expected to predict, to promise, to assure. But all you see are dangers, the wolf packs growing bolder as the snows deepen, the hunters risking more for less return, the elders weakening, the children coughing in the night, the stores of food shrinking with each passing day. You do not say it aloud, but you wonder how many will be here when the sun comes back. You know that your own place in the future is always in question, too. If you fail one time too many, the same people who beg you for comfort will turn on you with sharp words, with stones, with exile. You have seen enough to know how short and brittle hope can be. You remember winters when children vanished beneath the snow, never found until the thaw. You remember a time when the river froze too late, and the people who tried to cross disappeared into black water. You remember the faces of mothers who lost 3, 4, 5 children in a single season, and the way their eyes emptied, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to save. When you close your eyes, you do not see bright tomorrows. You see storms gathering, wolves circling, the sky closing down. You have dreams of empty lodges, of fires guttering out, of silence settling like dust. Some days you wake up and realize that the only skill you have truly mastered is endurance, the art of lasting just a little longer than yesterday. The people want hope, but they settle for ritual. They want you to tell them a story about a better future, but they are satisfied with a story about surviving one more day. You perform your role because there is nothing else to do, because hope, real hope, is too fragile, too costly, too easily broken by the world you all live in. You envy those who can still pretend, the young mothers with their new babies, the children who believe that every spring will be full of berries and laughter, the hunters who toast each other after a lucky kill. You do not begrudge them their illusions, but you know they cannot last. So you wait, you listen, you keep your voice gentle, and you never promise more than tomorrow. You are the shaman, you are the last brittle strand holding together a tapestry fraying on every side. The future is always grim. Your job is not to fix it, not even to soften it, just to keep everyone looking forward, even if it is only into the gray. You once believed, as all young people do, that old age brought wisdom. The old shamans in the stories were always calm and knowing, their words like smooth stones at the bottom of a river, worn by time, shaped by patience, deeper than they first appeared. The reality is that old age brings mostly pain, bitterness, and an accumulation of regret. You are older now than you ever thought you would be. Your joints creak with every movement. Your knees ache when you kneel to tend a wound, and your back is a knot of pain that never quite loosens, no matter how you stretch or sit. Your teeth hurt. Some are missing, and the ones that remain are as brittle as the old bones you keep for rituals. Your skin is thin, marked by old scars and sores that take forever to heal, and there is always a new itch, a new pain, a new reminder that the body is not your ally, but your enemy. Your mind, too, is not what you hoped it would be. You do not feel wise, only tired. The lessons you learned are not secrets or truths, but the endless repetition of failure, another sickness you could not cure, another death you could not prevent, another family that looks at you with disappointment or anger. You know more stories now, but they do not feel like treasures. They feel like weights you must drag through each day. There is no comfort in knowing the names of every plant, every wound, every spirit, when none of them will ever save you or anyone else. People expect you to be wise, to have answers. They come to you with their troubles, their griefs, their impossible questions. Why did my child die? How can I find peace? Will the pain in my bones ever go away? You give them the same words you have always given, the same prayers, the same little rituals, deep inside, that the only answer old age has given you is that there are no answers, only more questions, and the growing knowledge of how little you can change. Some days you are short tempered. You snap at children who ask too many questions. You glare at the hunters who boast too loudly. You refuse to answer when someone demands another miracle you cannot give. The younger people look at you with fear or resentment, and the older ones look away, not wanting to see their own future in your shaking hands and hunched shoulders. You were never beloved, but now you are mostly avoided. You feel the cold more acutely. The damp in your lodge never leaves your bones, and the nights seem longer and darker than ever before. You remember how, as a child, you would burrow into a nest of furs and sleep so deeply the world vanished. Now, sleep is a shallow, broken thing, punctuated by pain, by dreams of the dead, by the sounds of wind and rain and coughing in the distance. There is no rest, only the slow wearing away of strength. You remember the old shaman who taught you how he seemed so ancient, so unbreakable, so full of secrets. Now you wonder if he too was simply tired, if his silence was not wisdom, but resignation, if his slow movements were the result of pain rather than ritual. Maybe all old shamans become angry, bitter, haunted. Maybe all old people do. You find yourself muttering to yourself more often, grumbling about small slights, resenting the demands that never cease. Your body betrays you in other ways. Wounds fester instead of healing. You catch coughs and chills that linger for weeks. Your fingers swell and stiffen, making it hard to tie knots or grind roots or draw the symbols in ash and bone. There are days when you wonder if you will simply fall asleep and never wake up, and the thought is not unwelcome. Still, you endure. You perform the rituals. You mix the medicines. You listen to the endless parade of complaints and fears. You do not tell anyone how tired you are, how heavy everything has become. There is no one to tell. Old age has not made you wiser, only more weary. You watch the young and know that one day they will be as you are, alone, aching, disappointed, still waiting for wisdom to arrive. You are the shaman. You are old, but not wise. You have survived, but survival is not the same as understanding. If there is any lesson in growing old, it is this: there are no lessons, just the slow, inevitable wearing down of flesh and spirit, the fading of hope, the certainty that the world will go on exactly as it always has. no matter how much you ache or how much you know. In the quiet hours of the night, when the wind has calmed and the fire has burned down to a faint, sullen glow, you sometimes allow yourself to think about your own death. It is not a dramatic thought. There will be no prophecies, no heroic end, no final act of wisdom that redeems a life spent at the margins. No one waits for your last words. No one plans to sing your story. Your death, like your life, will be an afterthought. You have seen enough endings to know how it goes. It will not be the kind of death the warriors hope for, bloody and quick, sung about by those who survive. It will not be the gentle fading the elders sometimes describe, slipping into sleep and waking in the arms of ancestors. More likely, you will die as you have lived, alone, half hidden by animal skins, in a corner that always smells of mold and smoke. Perhaps your body will be found a day later, perhaps a week. Perhaps no one will come at all until the smell drifts on the wind, sharp and sour, reminding someone that there is one less mouth to feed. If anyone notices, it will be out of necessity, not grief. Someone will poke their head into your lodge, wrinkling their nose. They will prod your body, mutter a few words, and then call for the young and the strong to carry you out. There will be a ritual. There is always a ritual, but it will be hurried, practical, something to check off the endless list of chores. Your body will be wrapped quickly in whatever scraps are at hand, the grave dug shallow and close, because who would carry the shaman any farther than needed? There will be no keening, no feast, no gathering of friends to remember your laughter or your wisdom. You have none of those things to offer. The stories told about you, if any, will be short and unfinished, quickly replaced by the new concerns of the living, who will heal the sick, who will bless the hunt, who will stand in your place and pretend that they know something no one else does. The cycle will continue. Another will put on the rags and the mask, and the people will tell themselves that this time things will be different. You suspect that you will not be missed. There may be a moment of uneasy relief, as though some curse has lifted, as though the air is lighter without you in it. Perhaps someone will spit on your grave, blaming you one last time for whatever hunger or sorrow the tribe must endure. Or perhaps no one will even bother with that. The tribe is too busy, too battered, too consumed by the everyday business of survival to waste much energy on mourning a shaman. You are not family, not friend, not truly of them at all. You are just the shaman, and now you are gone. Your legacy will be the same as your life, fragile, uncertain, mostly forgotten. A child might stumble upon your lodge and wonder who lived there, picking through the remnants of your bitter herbs and broken charms. The new shaman might keep one or two tools, convinced for a moment that some lingering power remains, before realizing they are only sticks and stones, as useless for magic as for firewood. Everything you owned will rot, will be picked apart by animals and time, until nothing is left but memories no one bothers to recall. If the spirits do wait for you, they will not cheer. If the ancestors do gather, they will recognize you for what you are, just another person who survived long enough to die. No wiser, no braver, no more important than any other. You do not fear this. You have never expected anything else. You know now that meaning is something invented by the living to make their own small sufferings feel larger, more noble. In truth, the world will go on exactly as it has always gone on, cold, indifferent, and eager to forget. You do not rage against your fate. You do not beg for a different ending. You have lived in the margins for so long that you have learned the hard wisdom of being overlooked. There is peace, perhaps, in knowing that nothing you did mattered enough to curse or bless the people who remain. Your death will leave as little mark as your footsteps in the mud, washed away with the next rain. This is the final truth of being shaman. You are the last hope and the first scapegoat, the keeper of secrets and the target of blame. You are alone in life, and you will be alone in death. The cycle will begin again with a new name, a new mask, a new burden for someone else to bear. You have carried yours as far as you could, and that will have to be enough. Your death will be unnoticed and meaningless. The fire will burn, the rains will come, and the world will forget. You have done your part, and now you will sleep, at last, untroubled by dreams or memories or hope.